Hey gang, it's Miles with Clutch City Crawfish here. About 3 years ago, some Swedish friends of mine from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo introduced me to a tradition of theirs called a Kraftskiva, which is essentially a Swedish crawfish boil. The more we got talking about it, the more we wanted to do it, but unfortunately that year we couldn't make it happen. But about a year later, we were able to figure out the logistics and make that happen for them. Naturally, they tasked me with the most essential part of the krafstiga, and that is actually cooking the crawfish or kraftor themselves. This made me nervous, but it had me 100% completely intrigued. Because you see, a Swedish crawfish profile is completely different than our classic Cajun crawfish. Whereas Cajun crawfish has a lot of Cajun seasoning and a Cajun spice, a Kraftskiva crawfish bowl is completely different. Their essential ingredients are water, beer, dill, sugar, and salt. That is it. It is a much cleaner taste. It's almost, think of it more of as a brine. It reminded me of a shrimp cocktail once it was all said and done. So what we're doing here today is we're actually going to do a test run of that. We're going to cook about 5 pounds of crawfish today in the Swedish style. So here's what you're going to need for this recipe. First off, you're going to need a large stock pot. We're using about an 8-gallon stock pot in this video, which should be enough for 5 to 10 pounds of crawfish. You're also going to need your dry ingredients pictured here. This is baby dill, sugar, dill seed, celery seed, and a coarse ground kosher salt. You're also going to want to find yourself a medium to dark beer. I'm using an amber in this recipe, but you can also go to an English style porter, preferably something that's very mild in flavor. You want to avoid any chocolate flavored or coffee flavored stouts. Obviously, you're going to need your crawfish. And if you are able to obtain the crown dill, which I'll go over with in a moment on the differences, then you can omit the dill seed and celery seed from this recipe. So the first question you probably have is, what is the difference between crown dill and baby dill, which is what we're using in this recipe today? Essentially, they're the same thing. They're just at different stages of the life cycle. So this is baby dill right here. This is very common in all grocery stores. You should be able to find this almost year-round. And this is crown dill. Obviously, the first thing you notice is the flowering buds on it, and you can see how the plant really blossoms and starts to kind of create that crown shape. Crown dill doesn't typically come around until the summer months, so maybe late May, early June. July and August are really prime months for this. So contact your local farmers market or even some herb markets around the country to find your own crown dill. The first step in all crawfish processes, of course, is to wash your crawfish. I take, for 5 pounds, we can do that right here in the sink. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes of continuous running water until you get a clear water like you see here. So we have about a 8-gallon stock pot here. So inside that, we're going to start very simply with about 3 gallons of clean water. So what we've done so far to add to this water, we have added salt, we have added sugar, we have added beer. I used an amber beer this time around because it's what we used our last time and we got a really good flavor out of. But use whatever beer you like, the darker the better. And then we've also added dill seed as well as celery seed. Now, the reason we use dill seed and celery seed, that is not a traditional ingredient in this recipe. However, it's March here in Houston, and crown dill is much a summertime herb, and so we just don't have access to it, so we're trying to help out the baby dill that we do have. So far, to the water, we've added about 2 cups of salt and about a little less than a quarter cup of sugar. So roughly about a 5-to-1 ratio salt to sugar. So you can do the math, depending on how many gallons and how many crawfish you are doing. To that, we've added the dill seed and the celery seed. Again, we don't have any access to crown dill right now, so we're trying to help the baby dill that we do have. So we're adding these ingredients to really kind of try to boost up that flavor. And then to that, we've added to that 3 gallons of water, we've added 2.5 amber beers is what I'm using here today. You can see right here, we got amber beer right here. This is what we used in our last recipe, and we found it gave a really, really nice, clean taste to it. I'm sure you're all wondering, what are you going to do with the other half of that beer? Well, cheers. You've added all the other ingredients except for the dill, so let's go ahead and add about half of the dill that you have into the pot now. We will bring that to a boil, and once we do that, then we will add our crawfish. Now, while you're waiting for the water to boil, my recommendation is to put some music on, maybe some ABBA. So we've let our liquid come to a boil. At this time, we're going to let that boil for about 8 minutes or so, and just kind of let those flavors really meld together. And then we're going to actually remove the dill that's in our liquid. You can discard that. When you're getting enough dill for this recipe, there's not really a set amount. Just make sure to get a lot, because you're going to want to add a few bunches to the boil itself, remove it, and then you're going to add a little bit more for it to brine later. And then you usually want more for garnishes and things like that. After that, so now that our water's been boiling for a little bit, we're going to add our crawfish to that. Make sure you rinse them off for one last time, drain all the excess liquid, add your crawfish to the pot, and then we're going to let that come back to a boil. The worst thing you possibly do is overcook your crawfish. So I will show you how to make sure you don't do that here in just a moment. So while you're waiting for your crawfish to come back to a boil, what you should do in this time is create an ice bath for them. Get a large bowl or another stock pot and fill it with ice cold water. You can do water as well as ice cubes. What we're going to do is, once they've come back to a boil, we're going to remove them and add them to that liquid to stop that cooking process. It's just imperative in the cooking process here for the crawfish to make sure they don't get overcooked. So we want to remove our crawfish at this time. We brought it back to a boil. It was right at about 8 minutes. We let it come to a boil. We let it boil for about a minute, and then we cut the heat and we remove the crawfish and we put them into our ice bath. You do not need to let them sit in the ice bath long. We do not want them to get the water flavors in there. We want them to have our brine, but we need them to stop cooking. So very similar to how you would cook shrimp. We're going to remove them from the heat, do that. Now, if you're cooking in large batches, this is very different than like you would a Cajun crawfish boil, where you just cut the heat, let them soak in the pot for 30, 45 minutes. We're soaking them a lot longer than that, so it's not imperative to let them stay in the pot right now. So we are bringing them out, we're stopping that cooking process so they don't get overcooked. So after you have removed your crawfish, put it into that ice bath, after about a minute or so in that ice bath, just enough time to let those crawfish really come back to room temperature, you can go ahead and strain them into a colander. Now what we need to do is we need to wait. We need the hot liquid to cool down pretty much all the way. So, grab a beer, grab a snack. You're going to wait about 30 minutes or so to let that liquid cool to basically room temperature, and then I'll show you what we do next. While your liquid is cooling, you're going to want to have those strained out crawfish. Go ahead and put those in the refrigerator to kind of cool down themselves. That's just going to help with the whole process moving forward. Once your liquid has cooled down to roughly room temperature, you're going to add that liquid back to your crawfish. Find a small crock pot or large bowl that you can comfortably fit your crawfish and your liquid. That's going to also fit in your refrigerator. Again, this is much more difficult for large batches of crawfish that you're doing with maybe a commercial crawfish cooker, because you need to find a space to store that, essentially. A small ice chest that you can put into a walk-in cooler or a large cooler space will work best for this. One thing that I can't emphasize enough on this process, no matter how cooled down your liquid is, there's always going to be some remnants of heat there until it really hits the fridge and takes hours to really cool down to where we need it to be. When you store that liquid and crawfish back in your refrigerator space, do not cover it. Any remnants of heat that's left in that water still will not be able to escape and cool down properly, and it's going to continue to cook your crawfish. It's going to keep foodborne illnesses inside of that liquid, and it's just going to be bad altogether. Not only is it going to ruin your crawfish, it's going to ruin your whole experience and the event, unfortunately. So this is what we're looking for. Once you've added your crawfish back to your cooled down liquid, you're going to add the rest of the dill that you have. Save some for garnishing and things like that for your party the next day. But you want this dark Very clear looking water though. Your crawfish are going to go back in there. The extra dill you're going to go in, that's just going to impart more flavor. Give it a quick stir, and then in the fridge it goes. And now we wait for 24 hours or the next day. As from here, you are finished. You are gonna let the crawfish sit in the refrigerator overnight, and you let all those flavors make those crawfish happy. And then tomorrow, when your party's about to start, you're gonna remove it from the refrigerator. You're gonna drain off all that liquid. Don't worry about saving any of the dill or anything that's in that pot. You're gonna set up your crawfish on a platter. Let's garnish it with some of that dill that we saved from yesterday, and enjoy. Just like any crawfish boil that you find around the world, whether it be here in Texas or in Louisiana or Australia, wherever it may be, the Swedish Kraftskiva is meant for one thing: to enjoy friends and family and to enjoy great food and have a great time. So when you get your crawfish already on the table, grab a few bottles of aquavit, download some of the classic Swedish songs that they sing at these, maybe some few Swedish decorations and funny hats, and just have a good time. We really hope y'all enjoyed this video and that your crawfish come out fantastic and your party is a huge success. One thing I can't emphasize enough is this recipe is different. It's not supposed to be your classic Cajun crawfish boil, but that's the point. We want y'all to have an open mind about it, experience a new culture and how they do things, and really just, again, enjoy the people that you are around and enjoy this dish. If you like this video, please subscribe, follow us. Even check out clutchcitycrawfish.com for some more recipes that we have on different flavors of crawfish, different ways to cook them, and even like some other recipes that we have in store for you. So enjoy, guys, and happy peeling.